Hello and welcome to episode number 75 of the WP Café show with me, Keith Devon, and my co-host, Mark Wilkinson. We will be chatting through some of our recent adventures in WordPress development and things that we've been working on this week. Thanks for joining us. If you're live on YouTube, do say hello. If you're listening on the podcast, you can't really do that, can you? But you can always find us on Twitter or on the socials. So track us down there. And as always, if you do enjoy the show, please do leave a little like and consider subscribing if it's something that you would like to hear more of. So without further ado, what are we going to be talking about today, Mark?
We've got a few topics today. We've got working with APIs, which was my week. We've got Chat GPT, more stuff around that, and various other little bits and bobs if we get that far down the list, because last week's episode we didn't really have much on the list, but we ended up rambling on for like 47 minutes, so we'll see how we get on this week.
Quite good at rambling if we need to ramble. We also love when we get some questions and just general chat in the YouTube chat channel. So if you are watching along and you've got something to say, something to ask, a point to raise, please do that. We love hearing from you.
Yeah, definitely. I usually spend 15 minutes this morning sort of like rumbling around Twitter just to see if there's any interesting tweets and things to talk about. So if you found some that I've missed, get the questions in the comments. That'd be good.
Yeah. Let's try to stay away from any major controversy there.
Yeah,
that would be nice for a change. What's up first then?
I guess working with APIs. I guess that has been much of my week, much of my last 2 weeks actually.
Yeah.
So the context behind this is we've got our product JobRelay, which integrates with various different job posting providers to provide those jobs to WordPress. And we had an existing customer who came to us and said, look, I want to move away from my job posting provider and I want to use this service, this new service, which was called Workable. And we didn't have an integration with Workable. So we took the opportunities to work with the client who was really open to that and to try and build an integration not only for that client, but something that we could then use going forward and offer that as a service for other clients. So that's what I've spent the last couple of weeks working on. You start off sort of like, I don't know, the mood with working with APIs is like, oh my God, never going to be able to do this. It's terrible. And then Keith usually says, go on, Mark, just have a quick play with it. You know, get somewhere. And then I come back and say, oh, it's easy. I've got it. I've got a list of jobs and I can do everything. And then you hit the sort of like, oh, I forgot about that. And oh God, does it really work like that? And then you sort of go through that phase of like, you've had the sort of congratulations of getting it done, and then you hit all the negatives of like, well, it doesn't do it, and so on. And then you kind of you work through those things, and then eventually you get to a point where I think we are right now, whereas it's like, this is working. This is pretty good, actually.
Yeah. So do you feel like it was worth doing, knowing what
Definitely.
you know now in terms of how hard it's been or how?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a few main issues you have with APIs personally. Like, tell me if you have different ones, if you're in the comments and you've worked with APIs. Obviously, we're working with pulling jobs from a service. So the first one is authentication. So the authentication issue is it can be dead straightforward in that you just pass in a token, or it can be more complicated where you have to do some handshakes to pass tokens backwards and forwards like OAuth, and then getting data that you then have to store locally, which you then have to send with each request. This one was easier on the easier end of things. They just require you to create an API key in the Workable account, set the correct permissions so that key can do the things you want to do. In this case, it was literally pulling the jobs. That's all we want to do. We don't want to send data back. We don't want to add candidates. We don't want to deal with all that sort of stuff. And then you pass that in the header of the request. I think it's called like a bearer token or something in the headers request, but it's pretty straightforward. And then it works. And then there's various issues around that token in that it obviously is only allowed to do certain things. But in this particular instance, it had rate limiting introduced on it, which I don't think is like unusual. That's most APIs will have a rate limiting system so that you can't just keep pinging it requests every half a second and it's just, burning out the machine. This particular one had, I think it was 10 requests per 10 seconds. So you could only do 10 requests per 10 seconds. So I was sat there thinking, well, most of our customers probably have like a list of 40 or 50 jobs at any one time where they're live jobs. We do get some customers that have thousands of jobs, but they're very few and far between. And they at the moment, they're not using this integration, obviously. So I'm thinking if I've got to get 40 jobs or like 50 jobs, for example, then I've got to do 50. I've got to do one request, which is fine because I can actually get 50 jobs in the one request. Perfect. I think you can get up to 100 in this API. It'll let you do. So that was perfect. So I grabbed all the jobs and I'm thinking, oh, this is great. So I'm looking at the data and I'm looping through the data to prepare it for then sending on to the client and everything. And I'm thinking, well, hang on, this is missing and this is missing and this is missing. So there was no like team member associated with it. So that's the recruiter that's written the job saying, hey, Jim Smith was the one that wrote the job. Therefore, we need to sort of assign him. So that was missing. There was no job industry. There was no job like function or experience or any of those fields were missing. Employment types like full-time, part-time, etc. So I'm like, that's weird because I know that you can set them in Workable. When you go to create a job, all those fields are in like creating a job. You can fill them all in basically. So more digging, there's more endpoints. So there's an endpoint to get the members of a job. And then there's an endpoint to get what we call the job details, which basically passes you all of the stuff for a job. So then I'm thinking, well, I've got to get all the jobs. Then I've got, for each job that I receive, I've got to do 2 further requests to get the members and the details of the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if I'm getting 50 jobs, that's 101 requests, I think, because it's 2 requests for each job, and then the original request to get all the jobs. So then I'm like, but I don't have enough. My rate limiting will kick in then because I'm only allowed 10 every 10 seconds, and that's probably going to take less than 10 seconds. So I was like, what do I do? I'm screwed here. So I contacted Workable, and they actually increased the limit slightly. I think it was 50 requests every 10 seconds, which certainly helped, but didn't really fix the problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because if you've got more than 100 jobs, that will still be an issue.
Is that a limit per client of ours or a limit for JobRelay as a whole?
It's a limit for the API key that you're using. So that API key
is specific
the Workable
to the
API key. Yes, and to that Workable account, if that makes sense. So that API key is only allowed to do 10 requests every 10 seconds. So I had to then look into some like how to rate limit my API, my calls basically. So I did a lot of iterations, and I think the one I'm actually using is simplistic and not sure how it'll cope with lots and lots of jobs, like if someone was pulling 2,000 jobs.
Yeah.
But essentially, we sort of, without going into great detail, which I don't think is what you want to hear on this podcast, it's essentially, it's checking how many requests have been done, and then it's kind of stopping the application from carrying on. It's like a pause, essentially. Let's just pause for a few seconds necessary to then wait and then do the requests again, and so on. So it's doing it that way. And from testing, it seems to work, but I haven't been able to yet test it with a lot of jobs because I need the client to log in and start adding some more jobs and so forth to test it with. But yeah, I'm actually really pleased with the integration. I've managed to set it so that clients can choose the duration that they pull the jobs. So I've said there's a drop down where they can choose like every 30 minutes, every hour, every 4 hours, or every 12 hours. And then I've almost created, I've got WordPress cron jobs that are set up to run on those intervals, get me the feeds that are set up to pull jobs at those times, and then go and pull those jobs in and send them onto the WordPress client. So that seems to work at the moment. Made a change to one of the jobs and then just sat there and waited, went back to my local site an hour or 2 later, and it had updated. So that was good news. So yeah, it's looking good.
So Yeah, and you've learned
Oh,
a few little new coding tricks along the way, haven't you? New couple of PHP functions that you hadn't used before, which is fun.
That's right. Yeah, one sec.
I think the first one you said was a do while loop.
Yeah, I've seen it in code.
Yeah.
What's called a do while loop, but I've never understood what it is, and I've never used it. And from my understanding, again, correct me in the comments if you think I've got this completely wrong, it's kind of a while statement, but the first iteration of that while statement always runs. So in WordPress, you've got like while have posts. If you don't have any posts, that while statement will never run. So essentially, it will never execute. Whereas a do while is like the first thing happens, and then it runs the while statement, which of course may not run another one, but it would then run through the while statement. And the reason why I was using that is because I want an initial call to the API to happen all the time, but then I only want additional calls to run if there is a next page of results to go and grab those. So that's where I was using this do while statement, and that was it's fun. It's fun, like learning new stuff that you've never come across before. I'm sure there's loads of other stuff that's out there, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was good. So that was one of them.
Yeah, very good. And you got that through some help from.
I got that through some help from Bob.
From Bob, yeah, our new employee.
A new employee called Bob.
He's doing very well. He's hit the ground running, Bob.
Absolutely. He's good, but he needs you to look over his stuff just to make sure that it's all right. Put in the comments if you know who Bob is. But yeah, he's pretty good at getting some good code out there. But it doesn't always work. You can't just copy and paste it. You've got to look at it, because Bob doesn't tend to know the context of your project. Exactly. He only knows like the context of the internet when he sort of learned everything. But yeah.
First prize to Sam.
Yeah, Sam. Well done. Bob is ChatGPT. Who was Chris?
Yeah. So yeah, that's been fun. Is there anything else you want to talk about with regards to the API stuff, and anything else you learned from that?
Elliot just popped some comments in here. So Elliot says, Bear basic OAuth 1, OAuth 2 APIs. It can be the most painful part of getting into an API. Yeah, it's really always my worry. Like pulling data from a URL and it returns your data, then you do something with it, whether you're saving it or passing it on to somewhere else or whatever. I'm relatively comfortable with that. But getting to the position where I can actually get to the data is my sort of like fear, if you like. This one was quite straightforward, which was nice. It's the ones where you've got the OAuth stuff where you have to sort of like send them to this URL, they accept permissions, it creates something, sends it back to you, then you have to send that back, and then it creates a code, and then you keep it becomes a bit of a minefield. But we got there in this one, which was good. And then Elliot also said, thank you. Do you pull live data from the API, or do you save it locally in your local database? This is just pulling live data because that is what I need to do, essentially. I need to get the live data if it's been updated and so on. So what I am looking to do is improve this, though, because at the moment what my API does is pulls all the jobs for each time. And Workable actually have an updated after variable that you can pass. So if I can save the date that I last called the API, I can then ask it to only get stuff that's been updated after that date, because I've already got the other stuff. Potentially there's work to do on that, but so instead of getting everything all the time, I'm only getting the stuff that I know I need, if that makes sense. I'm not quite sure how deleted jobs are going to come into that. That's the only thing.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought Elliot was asking there if we are directly using API calls to show for the front end, because we are saving to our local database. We're getting the jobs, saving them, and then displaying them, rather than displaying what the API returns us.
Sorry, that's a good question. Sorry, that is so. JobRelay, the service, gets the data live from the API and then sends it on to the client, and then our plugin on the client end saves those jobs into WordPress as a post type, so that the client site can do what they want with them. They can present them how they would in a theme, etc. Most use a job board plugin that then displays them for them, essentially. But that's the case. Yeah. Sorry if I got the wrong end of the stick there. But yes. Cool. No, that's all for that. Yeah. Do you want to chat about ChatGPT?
Well, yeah, I
What
mean,
thinking, Bob?
there's not loads and loads to say. We upgraded to Pro this week, and
Yep.
I mean, I can't say that I've noticed an absolutely massive difference in terms of the quality. I don't know if you have.
I'd say I have.
I feel it's
Yeah.
slower. I think it's a bit slower than 3.5. So this is ChatGPT 4 access to that. I think it's a little bit slower. You have noticed quality change, which is obviously good. The other things that I was doing is I was playing around with DALL-E, so image generation, for a friend of mine who's setting up this. I think I talked about it last week that I'm helping him with his website for his new drone business. And I was playing about with it, trying to generate a logo for that, and it wasn't very good. Like, I say that it's amazing that it can do anything and produce something that actually like looks kind of genuine and sort of usable, but it kept giving me like very complex images, you know, with like gradients and like loads of colors and loads of shapes. And over and over and over again, I was asking it to simplify. I was like, simplify that. I want less shapes. I want less colors. Like, make it black and white. It understood that. So it would give me black and white versions of a logo, which helped. But then still with loads of lines and complex shapes, I was like, no, this needs to work in really small formats. I want a super simple shape. And it just couldn't get it. And it kept coming back saying, here's a version with much simpler shapes. And it's like, that's worse. Like that's, or at least exactly the same. So it definitely, it has its limitations. And I do wonder if part of it is just unlocking the right prompts to use. So there's that whole like prompt skill set, which I don't have yet. But I find that interesting
for images than it is for other things as well, like when generating images.
The quality of the
it.
image was amazing. Like the images that it was returning was amazing, but it's just not what I wanted, and I couldn't get it there.
Well, I tried it just to give it a test, and I sort of asked it to produce a desktop background for my computer that was WordPress branded, and I think I said it has to be like an office sort of setting. So it produced this really cool sort of like blue sort of picture of a desk with a MacBook on it or an iMac, I can't remember. And then it had sort of like a WordPress mouse mat mug and everything like that, which was really cool. And then I asked it to, and this comes back to what you were saying, I said, oh, I'm happy with that, but I'd like it to be a tone of red rather than blue. And then it said, yeah, no problem. So it went off and redrew the image, but then it was a completely different scene. So it had changed the what do you call it? Like where the camera sits and looks. It was at an angle, so the desk was at an angle.
It was a different
picture. And it was like, no, I literally just want you to make the blues red. That's all I want you to do. I don't want you to change the pictures at all.
Yeah.
And then I did it again and asked it to do the same thing, and then with a different color and a few different things. And it's interesting you said the images are really good quality. On first inspection, this one was, and I saved it to my desktop. I thought, I'm going to use that, so maybe it's just in a blog post or something. But when I actually looked at the image, the name WordPress was all, at a glance, you could tell it was WordPress, but you couldn't pick out the letters when you looked at it. You couldn't literally pick out the letters. And the WordPress logo was all like weird on the top right-hand side. It had sort of like, it was almost like the pen had slipped when they were drawing it. It was weird. So there was, you could definitely tell it was an AI image, which wasn't the object of this. It didn't matter whether you could tell it was an AI image, but it's interesting stuff. I mean, it's so clever. I mean, I just can't get my head around how it works, how it actually does this. I was saying to you, it's one of the things, just don't get it. I just don't understand how it can do it. But
I think I'd like to look up like some kind of prompts to use, like some really, really good starter prompts for things, just to kind of show what it can do and how you need to interact with it to get the best from it, because I'm just not there yet. But with code, so I've been using it for code this week as well. I feel like my coding skills are getting kind of pretty rusty, and my JavaScript skills especially have always been pretty poor. And I'm using it loads just to, how do you do this little thing? How do you do that little thing? So instead of like coming up with Stack Overflow results where you've got to filter through, is this relevant to the kind of what I'm trying to do? Like, are those answers good? What's the best answer? It just gives something, and I'm just like, all right, nice, it works. Try it, works. And then if I need to adapt it's quite good at that with code, not with the images. With code, I can say, do that again, but with this thing. So there was an example where I was asking it it was basically to create I had a simple click event on an element. And what was happening was that element contained other elements. And when you clicked on those, it didn't fire the click event.
Got you.
And I just pasted it in like a little snippet of the code that I had. I said, I want this, but I want it to work on all the child elements. And it just told me how to do it and then gave me the code. And the thing I love about the code stuff is it explains it.
Yeah,
and
you
like,
can ask it to, can't you, as well?
Yeah, and you can ask it to explain it. But like, it was just doing it for me. So I've done this. We're using this method because, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's so great. So I'm actually like, I'm learning. I feel like I'm actually learning while using it, which is probably not what most people would expect to happen. They kind of think you're just passing it all off and you don't really know what's going on. You don't really know what you're doing. But actually, I feel like I'm actually learning the code more through learning.
I agree.
And
when I was doing it for mine, I'd sort of built I'd built my original integration with the API. And then as I was working out to do some of the other things, I was like, I don't like that way it does that because I can't do that, and so on. So I just went to ChatGPT and asked it to do just a call to the API, and it gave me some code to do it. And I was like, well, that's pretty much what I've got. It's fine. Yeah. And then I was like, right, how would you put pagination on that? So it iterated it again and explained. And then I was like, but it's rate limited to 10 in 10 seconds. Can you modify it to do that? And it was like, yeah. So it did that.
Yeah.
Some of it was wrong, but I knew why it was wrong because it had explained it, and I could see where I needed to change it for my instance as well. So like you said, you're learning all the time, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's really good. And it's like working with a junior rubber duck person, that you can just sit and bounce ideas off, and then.
Well, in some ways, better than junior as well because it knows everything. It just isn't like it's got all of the knowledge. It's not necessarily always implementing it well. Whereas a junior doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't have like the breadth.
Yeah, maybe I'm wrong then. Maybe it's like
knowledge, which is fascinating. I asked it to I had some minified JavaScript, and I didn't have the source file, so I asked it to beautify it. And not only did it do that, it fixed it all. It was like, yeah, I beautified it and tidied it up for you. And it was like, yeah, it was amazing. It just really loved nice structure to it. I was like, there's no way this is going to work.
Yeah.
Ran it, worked, no probs. So yeah, pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying working with it.
I think it's something that I need to remember is there as well, because it's like a new tool. My default is just to go into the search engines and, like you said, Stack Overflows and things. And I need to start just remember I've got this other tool now that's just as good, and I can start using that. So I've bookmarked it in my little bookmarks bar now, and hopefully it'll cry out to me to remember.
Got a few comments. I think we should probably jump in. Sam says, well, it's from a while back, Bob is the best employee. Yeah, we do like Bob.
It's a good price as well. There's not much salary on him.
Yeah. What is he? $20 a month?
$25 a month.
$25 a month. It's pretty good. Elliot was asking, is DALI credit based? I don't think it is. Once you
does that mean
paid for
you have to credit
plan?
You have to credit the.
As in, you don't have a certain number of credits to use. I don't know. Actually,
there is a number of requests for ChatGPT 4. I think you can only.
There is a rate limit on chat on
100 messages every 3 hours. So I don't know if that's how they're crediting the limiting you to what you do. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Nick says ChatGPT 4 seems to know WordPress theme.json pretty well, so Nick's obviously been using it a little bit as well, which is cool. And version 4 actually has access to the web, doesn't it?
Yes,
it can look stuff up, which is pretty cool because I asked it something and it said researching with Bing, and then it came back with the results. So yeah. Elliot says, I like using it for very small code snippets, then used it as a base. Inevitably have to change and adapt it for my use cases. Yeah, exactly. Like you don't. Yeah, I just find it useful for those little moments where it's like, how do I do this? Is there another way I could do this? Can I fix this? It's like it's never I want to do something and it just spits out the entire finished code for you. Like it's not. I mean, I probably will get there, but I don't think it's there yet. But yeah, super useful for little bits.
I was saying that to you. I think a lot of what it was doing was out of the context of my project. So one of the things it had was a function, and you pass it a URL, the URL that you want to query for the API. And obviously, I didn't. That was stored somewhere else in my system, so I had to then get that and then pass it across. And I was thinking, well, if I had access to my code, it would know that. Like it would know where it is, so it would easily be able to, just a bit like GitHub Copilot kind of knows my project more. So
yeah,
it knows where things are. So it's clever. I think that could easily come, definitely.
I just think this stuff's just going to improve exponentially for a little while. It's gonna be crazy soon. The Man. We've got The Man watching. That's great. What a great username. I'm looking for alternate methods to sell my plugin and also handle its licensing. I'm okay with coding, but not sure where to host my plugin files. And I'll just follow that up with his second comment. I mean, apart from AWS, is it possible to securely and conveniently save and query plugin files from something like Google Drive without purchasing any cloud platform plans? Thanks. Mark?
So I can only tell you what we do. So I'll just flip back to the original comment. So we sell our plugins via WordPress. We use Easy Digital Downloads, a WordPress plugin, which allows us to sell the digital content. And it has, does it call them add-ons? I'm not sure, but we have the software licensing add-on and the recurring something add-on. It basically allows you to do subscriptions. And I have also got the Git add-on. So basically every time I do a new release of our plugin, I just go into the download section in WordPress and basically say, go and fetch the Git releases again. And then I just select the latest one. It then downloads that zip file from GitHub, stores it on our site, and then that's what it serves to users when it comes up as an updated version. So we don't use AWS to host that on, and we don't use anything like that. It's just sat in WordPress itself. I guess if you are ACF, Gravity Forms, Elementor Pro, you probably have a lot of requests to download stuff all the time. So maybe that's where you'd need something like AWS. But for us, it works pretty well at the moment. That's all we do.
Yeah. Okay. So he just followed up there. I followed a tutorial on Envato that creates a whole licensing system while saving the files. And I think he meant AWS, maybe. I mean, if you can roll your own, then maybe. But I sort of think, I don't know how much we're paying for our EDD add-ons.
I think we get the All Access Pass, which is about $450 a year. I'm guessing something like that.
It's not dirt cheap, but like building your own system and maintaining it, I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that's like one sale for us, isn't it? One license of JobRelay. So it's not. I don't consider that expensive. If you're selling WordPress plugins at £10 a pop, then you've got to sell a fair few to cover that cost, haven't you? So maybe that's something to consider. But there are other products. I know that we have used Lemon Squeezy, which is a store-based online store, and they also have a licensing and subscription sort of module, which I don't think costs extra. I think you can use it, and you could integrate your product with that, and it would do that as well. So and I'm sure there's others. Maybe Shopify do the similar sort of thing.
He's saying without purchasing any cloud platform plans, so he's obviously trying to stay away. He's probably seen those kind of options and trying to stay away from them. So it's tricky. You're gonna pay for it, or you're gonna do it yourself. Pretty much. I don't know how many. Like if anyone's going to be hosting your stuff for free, but I guess what he's saying is like, can you host it on AWS? But there's some kind of open source free kind of system to use to handle the licensing. And I don't know if that exists. But
we don't have a free one. We obviously said we use Easy Digital Downloads, which is good. I like it. It just could be better.
Yeah.
Basically. But yeah.
So Mark, we've got one last topic Well, two. The last one we're going to cover is potentially a way for some of us to maybe get together in real life. So we'll save that to the end. But Mark, you just wanted to quickly mention your home networking trials and tribulations.
I don't know if anyone else is doing it. So I've been I was trying to get a better Wi-Fi signal around the house. So I'm just looking into like access points and things. Found a few. I just don't know if anyone maybe runs one in the home that's recommended. Like, I think the issue for us is we're a family of 4, and we have a lot of devices connected to the Wi-Fi. You know, when you actually count them up, it's ridiculous what you have. You know, everyone's got a phone, everyone's got an iPad, everyone's got a laptop. I've got a few other things. You've got printers, you've got televisions, you've got skyboxes in my house. So you can easily rack up into the sort of 40s and 50s. And I think most sort of like off-the-shelf routers that you get with your broadband provider, they're not particularly optimized for handling, 50, 60 devices that are connected to them. So I was looking to get something that's got a bit more oomph, shall we say, to connect it to. So interestingly, Sam there just says we use a Ubiquiti Unify. That's exactly the thing that I was looking at. So I was hoping someone would be able to say, that is the right thing, Mark. You're on the right lines. So I was looking at them today, and I'm comparing them. It looks like the U7 Pro would be pretty good for me, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my home networking. And then I also had someone come in to do a quote to get some more Cat 5 around the house and stuff, or is it Cat 6 these days? Ethernet cable, basically. And it was a bit expensive, so I didn't bother. But it was like over £1,000, which I suppose if it fixes all your issues is not that much of a problem. But I just didn't want to lay out that for now. But what he did do is fix one of my wires that was here, which has been wired wrong for like the last 20 years. So I've literally only been able to use like one cable that was also wired wrong with it. So it like did the right connection. So he's fixed that, and now I can use any wire into it, which is good. So,
yeah, I cabled up my whole house when I did our renovations. So I've got Ethernet into every room, multiple points in some rooms, but I haven't actually connected any of it. So I'm still running the whole house off the Virgin Media hub. So I need to get that fixed. I bought some switches and some patch panels and some stuff. So I just need to hook it all up and start testing it and figure out which end goes to which room. That's going to be fun.
Did you not label them?
I think I labeled some of them. Yeah,
oh,
I tried to, but it was a rush job in the middle of winter on 2 dark nights. So with me and my friend trying to do it before the walls were put in. So yeah.
Nick, thank you, Nick. Says I pointed. Is that word? Or is that spelled wrong?
Ponied up.
Ponied up. I've never heard that before. Some Ubiquiti gear doing COVID has been faultless. That's good to know. I'm really intrigued as to which ones you went for. And Sam, oops, I can't see what I'm doing now. Sam says the same thing. Yeah, it's really good. Great interface too if you're having multiple dishes. I presume by dishes he means like access points, because they're kind of circular dishes things. Powered over PoE, which is power over Ethernet. And so you don't need a power socket to the actual access point, which is another price because you can't put it anywhere then, can't you?
So are those the kind of like mesh systems? Is that like creates a single network that it's kind of like a mesh through the whole house?
You can get them for mesh systems, but the one I was looking at, this U7 Pro, I don't think I'd need it. I just think I'd need one, and if I can put it in the middle of the house, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But the problem with my routers at the moment is that it's in the corner of the house, and it's an oldish router, so it's not particularly. I may say an oldish router. It's probably like 4 years old, so I don't think the throughput or the signal is particularly good. I think one of these devices has got a much better coverage and a better throughput. So I think one of these might be good enough to work. So we'll see. But yeah, good to know. Anyway, thank you everyone for your advice on that.
Yeah, very good. Very good. So lastly, this is something we spoke, I think, did we mention WordCamp Europe last week on the show about whether we were going to go, or is that just an internal? I don't know if we mentioned it on the show, but we had a conversation this week about whether or not we should go. When we took it fairly seriously, we were looking at flights and how we would get there and everything. And in the end, we actually just decided just
Not
the way
easy,
the
was it?
flights were.
Yeah.
It was going to be a lot longer stay. We couldn't just get in and out quickly and easily. It would be
It's
like
going to be like
hotel
5
rooms
days, I think,
either
wasn't
end
it?
of it. And yeah. So we
And
decided not to. But having made that decision, we also just thought, just really want to see some of our WordPress friends and just hang out and do, talk shop for a little while. So we are thinking of organizing some kind of little WordPress retreat in the UK, hopefully some point this year. Like there's no plans yet. I spoke to some of my friends this morning about it, and someone else had a similar idea. But it would basically probably look something along the lines of get a massive Airbnb somewhere that can fit, I don't know, 10 of us, that's even open to debate, or like a small hotel where we could, all get in, and they've got like a little conferencey room that we can hang out in. I don't know. Like, it's really, really open, but I really feel like I really want to make this happen this year because it's been too long now, and it doesn't look like we're getting a WordCamp in the UK. Well, we had one recently in Whitley Bay, wasn't it? But that I can really realistically go to anytime soon. And really, for me, it's more about seeing people and having conversations than sitting listening to talks. So anyway, I guess if that piques your interest at all, and you'd like to join us, then get in touch. I don't know the best places. You can certainly get in touch with this show on X. I'm going there. I'm going to call it X now. At WP Café Show, or us personally at Keith Devon or at WP Mark. So let us know if that's something you'd be at all interested in. I've got a few people in mind that think it'd be fun to go and hang out with. So let's do it. Great comment, Sam. Sam has just said WP Matt said he's going to fund a WordPress London venue next year after the bridge has been funded. Imagine. So that is tongue-in-cheek, I'm assuming. Yeah, don't think there's going to be any money left over after the bridge. Dan Wessel. Hi, Dan. I haven't seen you in a while. You're one of those people. You're one of those people I want to see again and hang out with. The corridor track was always the more valuable conference aspect. Completely agree. Yeah. So if people are at all interested in that, even if it was 4 of us or if it was 20 of us, I don't really care. I think it'd be just really nice to get together with some like-minded people for a little while, have a little weekend away or midweek, whatever. So there you go. Think on it. Get in touch if you're interested. And with that, I think we should wrap up the show. It's another long one. Oh, we never have anything to talk about, and we managed to talk for a long time. So thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for watching along live on YouTube and for all your comments. We really, really appreciate comments and questions. If you're listening on the podcast, thanks for getting us on the podcast or later on YouTube. We appreciate it all. If you did like the show, please do consider subscribing or just drop us a little like. The little like doesn't really cost you anything, but it makes a big difference to algorithms and things like that. Just to get us in front of a few more people, we'd really appreciate that. And anything else from you, Mark?
No, all good. We'll hopefully see you next week, same time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.